In continuation of the part 1 video, what was the situation of the women in India during the menstrual periods? In India, menstruation has been surrounded by cultural and social taboos and stigmas for many years. Many women and girls have been subjected to various forms of discrimination, isolation, and shame during their menstrual cycle. These stigmas have resulted in several negative consequences, including limited access to education, healthcare, and sanitation facilities. Here are some of the ways in which the menstrual cycle has historically been viewed in India. Menstruation is considered impure. In many parts of India, menstruation is considered impure and women are traditionally not allowed to enter the kitchen, temples, or other public spaces during their periods. This has led to women being ostracized and stigmatized, resulting in limited access to education and employment opportunities. Limited access to menstrual products. Access to menstrual products like sanitary pads and tampons has historically been limited in India, particularly in rural areas. This has forced many women and girls to use unhygienic alternatives like rags or old clothes, which can increase their risk of infection. Limited access to sanitation facilities. Many schools, public spaces, and households in India lack access to adequate sanitation facilities like toilets and running water. This can make it difficult for women and girls to manage their periods in a hygienic and dignified way. However, there have been efforts to address these issues in recent years. The Indian government has launched initiatives like the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan and the Beti Bachao Beti Padhao campaign to promote menstrual hygiene and empower women and girls. NGOs and social enterprises have also been working to increase access to menstrual products and improve menstrual hygiene education in schools and communities. Despite these efforts, there is still a long way to go in terms of promoting menstrual health and addressing the cultural stigmas and taboos that surround menstruation in India. Why the Indian women especially need menstrual periods leave? In earlier days, joint families were prevalent in India. Thus, during the menstrual periods, other women in the family take care of the family. But in modern India, most of the families are isolated families residing in the cities. Thus, the women have to participate in the housework and office work simultaneously. That causes overburden to the women. That causes family disturbances as well as social stigma. Thus, the Indian women need menstrual periods leave. Earlier, as the India is an agrarian economy, most of the women were participating in the agriculture works and the agriculture is seasonal in India. Thus, the women in earlier days have sufficient rest during the menstrual periods. But, in modern India, most of the women are doing office jobs. Moreover, 24/7 jobs. During their employment, the women must attend to their jobs even during their menstrual periods, irrespective of their physical and psychological conditions. Thus, the Indian women need menstrual periods leave. Generally, the worst symptoms of menstrual periods appear when the women performing multitasks like jobs in the office as well as homemaker in the house. As a homemaker, she has to look after the welfare of the children and husband, and as an employee in the organization, she has to perform her job effectively, which causes much more stress in the working women. Most of the women have to travel to perform their jobs during their menstrual periods also. Thus, the Indian women need menstrual periods leave. Why the governments are not thinking in this way? Most of the governments are run by men only, and the men could not feel the pain suffered by the women during their menstrual periods. In the male-dominant society like India, men decides to whom they have to vote. Thus, the governments are not looking after the problems of the women, especially Indian women. The women, especially in the rigid male-dominant societies like India, could not raise their voices towards their problems. Thus, they could not be provided their menstrual periods leave without raising their voices. In a democratic country like India, the vulnerable sections like women cannot get their rights and cannot their problem without raising their voices and without asking the government. Hence, I am herewith launching a campaign to get 3 days optional paid leave in a month to all the working women during their menstrual periods. If you want to support the first stage of the campaign, please subscribe my channel and share it with your near and dear till the voice of women reach the politicians and administrators. In the second stage of the campaign, please send a mail to all the chief ministers of the states and the Prime Minister of India with a request to provide 3 days optional paid leave to all the working women. In the third stage of the campaign, please demonstrate your wish, that is to provide 3 days optional paid leave to all the working women by wearing t-shirts, caps and by showing the placards. If you really want 3 days optional paid leave, please support this campaign. Your problem will not be solved if your voice will not be reached the government. The final stage of the campaign is being discussed in the next video.